this dot x is greater than the width of the screen is greater than the width. If it's going that way, it has a positive velocity, so let's give it a negative velocity. This dot vx is equal to, now I don't want to just change its sign because it's possible that as the sprite goes off the edge of the screen that it might go, like it might be going pretty fast, right? So it might be far off the edge of the screen when it gets turned around. But we're going to give it the negative of its velocity, so it's going to start to come back. But let's say as it's coming back, it's told, let's check where you are, but you're off the edge of the screen. So that makes the velocity positive again, so it starts going back that way. So you can have your sprite just bouncing on the edge of the screen. Should bounce, but it's going to bounce after it passes the edge of the screen. It's like right there. We want it to bounce a little bit earlier. We want it to bounce its width, its own width earlier. If it's greater than width minus this, like the width of the sprite, it's going to bounce this much earlier. Save that and run that. Now it should bounce just when it touches the edge of the screen. Okay, great. That's my sprite. Now I want to be able to control this sprite with the keyboard. Here, let's make that a bit bigger. I was dividing it by 20. Yeah, that's a little bit small. Let's double this. That would become 106.6. And let's double the 29, which would make it 58. It's a better size. I'm going to bring it to the bottom. I'm going to stop it from moving because we don't really want it to move until we tell it to move. I'm going to give it a velocity of 0 in the x and the y direction. I would like to build some sort of keyboard control. To build a keyboard control, we need to make something called an event listener. We do window.add event listener. What we're listening for is a key down event. Key down, there it is. Whenever that happens, we're going to call a function called myKeyDown. It's looking at the browser window. It's like looking at this browser, and it's looking for when somebody is inside this program and the keyboard goes down. Then we're going to call something called myKeyDown. So I'm going to make a function called myKeyDown. I'm going to put it before the move and before the draw. Function myKeyDown. The keydown is going to take an event, so EVT. So the EVT stands for event. I could have written the word event. I'm just that lazy. Event. Now I'm going to make a variable called myKey. It is going to be the event, the key code of that event. We're going to do a little quick console log. We are in myKeyDown, and myKey is plus myKey like that. So let's see if that works. Let's have a look at the JavaScript console. I'm going to press the left arrow, so that's 37, and the right arrow, that's 39. The spacebar I'm also going to need is 32. Okay, but also notice that things moved around when I press those arrows and when I press the spacebars. Those are default actions that the arrow keys and the spacebar make happen in a web page. We want to override those defaults. We're just going to say, hey, prevent the default if you press those arrow keys. I'm going to make a little if. If myKey 37 was the left arrow, 39 and then 32. If myKey is equal to 37, which is the left arrow, the first thing is I want to prevent that default from happening. Event.prevent default, like that. So that's going to prevent it from this happening, from scrolling, from doing that when you press the spacebar. We're going to make our spaceship, we're going to change its x velocity. So if you press the left arrow, we want it to move left. We're going to make its velocity in the x direction minus equals 2. Let its velocity be its old velocity, just take away 2 from it. We can put an else here. If my event is 39, then you press the right arrow, and so we're going to make the velocity go in the positive direction, plus 2. All right, let's see if that works. Didn't seem to work at all. Prevent default is not a function. Default, I spelled it wrong. It is on line 37. I forgot the A. Let's try that again. There, I'm able to move it with the arrow keys. So I'm pressing the right arrow, then I'm pressing the left arrow. But by changing the velocity, it's a bit smoother. It's a nice smooth movement. It also makes it behave a little bit more like an aeroplane. Okay, so if you're happen to be moving left and then you tell it to move right, it's got to slow down that left movement first before it can start to move right. So it's got to overcome the movement, which is more how things work in the real world. I want to move this thing down so it's like right here on the border. In the constructor, I'm going to put it, instead of at 200, I'm going to put it at 200 at the height of the screen. But we also have to subtract the height of it minus the ship's height, which is, why is that negative? That should be positive. 106.6. So take away 106.6. Let's see what that looks like. So if we run that, we put the ship right here. And we can move it left and we can move it right. The next thing is the monsters.